Nikki. I've been here for about 9 years, 9 years in January. So I'm actually Mike's sister, Alex's sister-in-law. So I'm family. January of 2020, we started the Chandler build out in the front here. So the Chandler build out took us about a year and a half, a year and 4 months. We built everything ourselves. So we built that big waterfall. We built our large pond. It was a pretty extensive operation because we were still running our other stores. So it was kind of build out some days, work retail others, which made it pretty challenging. But then we opened our Chandler location in April of 2020. Or 2021, we've kind of been continuing to grow our Chandler location. We rushed the opening a little bit because it was so highly anticipated. It took us a pretty long time because we were building in 2020, which was exceptionally difficult because supply and demand was crazy. And so getting the products we needed, getting the supplies we needed, getting the acrylic we needed was challenging. But we persevered, we got through it, and then we opened our Chandler location. And then our aquaculture was a huge build out, huge process. We've refined it quite a few times. We're still working on refining it and perfecting it. But most of our corals for all three of our locations, I'd say about, well, all of our frags, and then probably about 60 to 70% of our corals are grown in our aquaculture. There are some things that we can't aquaculture, like trachys, acanthophilias, things that are a little more challenging that we still do pull from the ocean. But we were incentivized to do this because the hobby kept getting more expensive, and aquaculture is the best way to lower prices and keep people in the hobby. It's also very sustainable in terms of we're not pulling corals out of the ocean, and as we learn more about how to grow corals, it helps with initiatives to restock the ocean and keep our coral reefs alive. So when we first receive all the corals, we do 2 separate types of dips depending on what the coral is and how much it can handle. So we do a hyposalinic dip, and then we also do a dip with Melifix and Coral MD. And then from there, we put them in what we call our transient tank. Our transient tank holds corals for about 3 months before they are added to any aquaculture system. And then the transient tank, before we pull them out of there, obviously we inspect for pests. We have a lot of animals that help us with pests, foxface, copperband, things like that. And then we also cut things clean. So a big part of avoiding pests in any aquarium is trying to cut off any rock or anything other than the actual coral itself. That's really vital. So we cut them extremely clean. And then from there, we just heavily monitor our systems and inspect them and dip. So we actually have 2 different systems they go through kind of before they end up in the main aquaculture. So there's a transient that they sit in. Then they sit in another one, which we believe to be mostly clean, but they are still our newer corals. And then once a coral has aged for a while in there and grown out, we usually cut it, and then we start new grow out disc and, in our final tank. Coral MD by Brightwell is our preferred choice. It's a good dip. A lot of people mistakenly use iodine dips. Iodine is pretty hard on a lot of corals. It will kill certain ones. And it's really meant to be more of a disinfectant. Coral MD, I can't say I know exactly what it is, but it's a form of like tea tree oils. It's a blend, of course, Brightwell knows exactly what it is. But it specifically targets invertebrates. And invertebrates are typically the things that are going to eat coral. So there's a lot of different types. Some of them it full on kills, other ones it simply stuns. So a very important process with dipping is that you gently blow on the coral while it's being dipped with a turkey baster. Because some invertebrates are only stunned, and so you have to blow them off. But this is a dip that's not going to harm your corals and not going to set them back or make them lose color. We have a mixture of AI and radion in our in our aquaculture. AI is a really great light for growing coral. We see great coral growth rates under AIs. They're also a good middle ground. They're a little more economical than the radions. That being said, radions do have a exceptional strength in color. They provide some of the most color diverse corals, and so of course everybody wants a combination of those two. So we have some tanks that are AI and we have some that are radion. We do a little bit of both. We range quite a bit with our freshwater. We're a little bit more focused in planted and nano tanks. That being said, we do have our predators and our cichlids, which we enjoy. And Chandler location in particular, we've been able to bring in koi, which is great because there seems to be a little bit of a shortage in our valley for it. So we do a lot of the planted scaped tanks. So that's going to be kind of a more serene, peaceful look. That being said, we still have large Oscars, big Severums, discus. So some of the more unique and harder to find freshwater is what we shoot for. So the tree, one of our owners, Mike, was actually used to, one of his first jobs was building ponds. He loves ponds, has them in every one of his houses. And so we had this idea to build a pond. And he wanted to, it was his idea. He wanted to do a massive tree in the middle of it. And we thought with this space, we have such tall ceilings, it really opened up the possibilities for what we could do. We wanted it to be more than just, a retail space that sold stuff. We kind of wanted it to be an experience. And so we built this big pond and we put a very heavy tree that we had to put together on top of it, and it actually came the wrong size. We ordered it and it was supposed to be about 1 foot by 1 foot on the base, and I would say it's closer to about double that size. So we were a little surprised, had to make some modifications when that happened. Huge range on saltwater fish. It's actually why we have such a big range on our show tanks. We have nano fish like sexy shrimp, yashahashi gobies, little pistol shrimp, neon cleaner wrasses, and then we also have big predators, rhinopos, groupers, lionfish, and then we have of course the more normal tangs, anthias, reef friendly fish. So we're really a huge range. We made the store so large so that we could have great selection of fish for everyone. So for the fish, we typically dip them in either a hypo dip or hydroplex. Kind of depends. Wrasses don't really handle fresh water well, so some things go straight into hypo. Some of them go into freshwater first. A lot of the tangs, really heavily ick-prone stuff, we like to get in freshwater. We use temperature-regulated freshwater with a little bit higher pH to try to reduce stress. And then we'll do hydroplex, and then we put them in our systems, which are treated with copper. We keep our copper between 2 and 2.5 parts per million. Which is a good therapeutic level. And then we also dose our food with ProziPro, which is a dewormer. Between ProziPro and copper, that takes out majority of things. Not everything, but most things. So I do believe in water changes. I think that there's been a lot of studies done, more so by large aquariums, on closed loop populations, so an aquarium essentially. With an aquarium, you don't have any outside factors going in, it's a closed environment. And with that happening, a lot of things bottleneck up, things build up that you wouldn't expect, and a water change is really the only way to prevent that. It also people mostly bring up trace elements when it comes to water changes. There's something to the fact that, you know, if your corals are consuming calcium and alkalinity, but you're buffering with those, but you're not treating iron and potassium and all the other smaller macro iodine and such, you will likely deplete those. And a water change is just a very efficient way of doing that. 10% per week is what we recommend here at Kona, or rather, if it's easier, 20% every 2 weeks. But whatever is easiest for you. I know some people, they have great tanks. They say they haven't done a water change in a year. But to me, it leaves a little bit of vulnerability to whatever's building up and a potential crash. And then also, I think the only way you could effectively, truly do that and have good parameters is by doing ICP testing and then dosing very specifically to your tank, which is available, but it's a very expensive option. And water changes just seem a lot simpler, especially now that Neptune and different companies have automatic water changing systems. It seems like it's a doable thing, and it leads to much better success. I would say the biggest thing is consistency. Figure out a routine and do not fail with it. So if you're gonna, that's why I often tell people, if you don't want to do weekly water changes, do bi-weekly, but don't miss. If you're gonna start feeding your corals, be consistent about it. Be ritualistic. Reefs are, especially if you look at them on a micro level, they will literally tune in with the ocean. So your corals, part of the reason they eat so well in the evenings is because that's when zooplankton naturally comes out, and they're trained to do that. Now you can train them to eat at different times. It's more natural, automatic for them to eat in the evenings. But the point is if you can train coral, if you're really consistent with your reef, you will have success. There's a lot of different methods out there, and you can almost always find somebody with a successful story with their method, and that's awesome. Stick with one person's method, because trying to do too many different things at once gets crazy, and then just stay really consistent. That is key.